Hi guys, welcome to my deck guide on a no DLC mono red combat. The YouTuber Matrian Maru already posted a red combat video, so if you want an alternative opinion on this deck, be sure to check out his video. I'll possibly link it in the description below, but this is going to be my take on the deck, and I'm going to get very in-depth into card choices, card alternatives that you can use, and also land placement and a sample match near the end. So this deck, of course, features the combat mechanic. Whenever this creature fights something, including hitting face, it'll trigger the combat effect. And this Underground Brigand here, as well as the boss, are very powerful cards because they gain you Faeria, and Faeria is such an important resource in this game. And then the last combat creature is Herald of War, giving the next combat creature you summon +1/+1, so this will keep on stacking. The more hits you, the more combat triggers you get with this, the more +1/+1 buffs you'll get on the next combat creature you summon. And the rest of the deck is kind of a standard red list. Just these burn spells like Cypher's Wrath, Flame Burst, Ground Shaker, all very standard cards to see in a red list. And the idea is to just get as many combat triggers as you can. So this deck is very good against swarm type of decks because you can keep your combat creatures alive, hit into their little guys, kill them off, have these survive, and be able to get even more combat triggers. So it's a very good matchup against swarm decks, also with the firestorms as well. But it's quite weak against big creatures, such as a mono green deck. It struggles quite a bit there, and if you are going against something like that, you'll have to try and prioritize face more than clearing the board, because you'll never win in the board clear. Horsemaster offers really nice mobility in this deck. Being able to give charge 3 to a friendly creature is very powerful in this because red's not a very mobile deck. Unlike other decks that have jump or charge, none of these creatures have any sort of mobility to them. So it's really nice to be able to have that extra mobility, and I think that's super important in this game, is having mobility on your creatures. In the mulligan for this deck, it's pretty simple. You just want to get a starting creature, of course, so that being Axe Grinder, Underground Brigand, Herald of War, Boss, one of these creatures. And by the way, Axe Grinder, don't be afraid at all to pick this as your starting creature. Getting the gift effect when it's summoned to an adjacent opponent's well is really nice to have, but an early game collector is a lot more important. So if you have this in your opening hand, definitely keep it, drop it down as a turn 1 collector. It will get you much more value than waiting until you get to your opponent's well. And so one of those cards is what you're looking for in your opening hand, at least one. And then for the other two cards, I usually like to find a burn spell like Flame Burst or Cypher's Wrath. And then as my third card, maybe another starting creature, even something like Ground Shaker or Cypher is okay as a third card there. But if you are building up your collection towards this deck still and you don't have all of these cards, there are some card alternatives you can pick. I'll talk a little bit about those. Also, if you just want some other card in here, maybe you don't like this list particularly, I'll point out some other decent includes. Grimguard is a good one if you're building up your collection. It's another combat creature, deal 2 damage to your opponent, and it has Taunt. It's really great value for the Faeria cost. And while this deck isn't super centered around burning your opponent down, it does have quite a few burn options, so this just gets your opponent's life total down just a little bit more. Gift of Steel is okay. It has been nerfed in the past year or so, where it used to be a 3-cost card. So if it gives +3/+0, and then if the creature has combat, it will give +3/+3 instead. So this is very powerful stats to your combat creatures. To me personally, I think the 4 cost is a little bit high, and I don't typically prefer this card so much. I think that a good substitute for this card even is like Herald of War. So if you want those buffs on your combat creature, I think Herald of War is a lot more effective in giving those buffs. But this is certainly a card you can consider. I just don't personally like it so much. If you're looking for deck filler, again, Firebomb is okay. I wouldn't include this if you have all of these cards. There's much better options to Firebomb. But if you're missing, let's say, like Flame Burst or Bomb Slinger, you could substitute one of these cards with a Flame Burst in the meantime while you're building up your collection. And that's pretty much it for the no DLC cards. If you do have the DLCs, there's other interesting includes that I like in this deck, one being Spite Sprite. So this is a 1-cost 3/1, which is very powerful in my opinion. The last word's dealing 2 damage to yourself. This usually doesn't matter so much if you're able to drop down a powerful creature, and even if it's dealing damage to yourself, as long as you're above 0 life, your life can be used as a resource, just like we see with Shaitan Demon, how powerful it is. This 2 damage hardly is a consideration when you're getting 3 attack on a creature. It's certainly awful against red decks. Red has a lot of answers to it, like Ground Shaker, Cypher's Wrath, very hard punishes to it. But other decks that don't have such easy options for this, it's very good. Against green even, it's quite decent because 1 Faeria 3 damage just gives you that extra damage into your opponent's green creatures. Another option to include is Rakoacopter. So this one is something you might consider substituting for Firestorm. I wouldn't run both Rakoacopter and Firestorm. I think that you would have to pick one for sure. And it just depends on your preference here. Rakoacopter gets to dash once, and then anything after it dashes that's adjacent to it, it'll deal 2 damage to all of those creatures. The only issue with this is that it requires specific land placement, so a lot of the time you'll have to build an additional mountain just to dash this into the correct spot to get all of the clear. What I like about Firestorm is that it can be dropped down anywhere on the board. You don't need any lands anywhere, don't have to build any extra lands. Also, the 3 damage to all creatures is quite nice. This is only 2. But the other consideration is that this also drops a 3/3 body on the board. So they're both very powerful cards, and there's a lot of debate whether which one is better. So that's kind of up to personal preference, but I prefer Firestorm in this particular list. The last card is Ogre Adventurer. This one is really strong in my opinion, and I think this is a good include in this list. Dash 1, and then at the end of your turn, you get to reduce a random card in your hand by 1 if it's on an enemy land. So this is super strong. It's 5/5 for 5, which is just solid body, solid stats for the Faeria cost, but then it's got upside as well. If you were to include this card, I'd probably be taking out some of the combat creatures here, so it draws a little bit away from the combat, but you get a really powerful card in return. And this card doesn't need so many synergies with combat, because we aren't running Gift of Steel in this list. You could probably substitute the Herald of Wars and something else, and then you still have these combat triggers, but there's nothing really synergizing with these that you're losing. So I think Ogre Adventure is very powerful there. Good to note also is that this type of list is only 3 mountains, which makes it quite fast in comparison to a lot of other decks. You can build double neutrals quite early on, but that also means that you can turn this into a rush deck if you kind of know what your opponent's playing. Maybe they're playing some slow combo deck that you really need to just get to their face as quickly as possible. You can just go double neutral down the center, right up to their face, and then Ogre Adventure again helps with that rush sort of mentality. Now this deck's not built to be a rush deck. There's certainly other cards you'd want to include to make it specifically geared towards rush, but it has that option to go down the rush path. And this kind of comes up a lot more in tournaments because you know what deck your opponent is playing, sort of. You get to see their deck covers and the Faeria cost and all of the land requirements for their deck. So if you see that they're playing a slow deck or something, something like Rakoans, let's say, you can, instead of going down the sides of the wells, like this deck will normally do, you can just rush straight down the center, and Ogre Adventure helps a lot with that option as well. Okay, so next up I'll talk about land placement. In this list, it becomes very dependent on what your opponent is playing, to which land placement you want to be building, which sides you want to be investing into, and all of those considerations. So like I said in the card alternative section, if you know what your opponent's playing, and they're playing some slower type of deck, or something, not specifically slower, but maybe like a combo deck, something that you need to really get into face as soon as possible, going double neutral down the center can be an option, and rushing this instead, that can be a little bit desperate an attempt. But typically, if you're playing on ladder, you don't know what your opponent's playing. So this deck can have benefits going the same side as your opponent, and it can have benefits going opposite side of your opponent. It's very dependent on what they're playing. So I would like to make this decision which side I want to invest into as late as I possibly can and see what my opponent's doing. So I always like to start mountain center like this and see what my opponent does. If they put a land in the center tile here, then I just have to pick a side from there. I'm not sure which side they're going into, but that's all I can do. And then, so once I've placed my second land, I'll drop my boss here as my starting creature, and then I'll probably double neutral up this way, and just try and get up an aggressive mountain, either here or here. This is the best spot, of course, and you're trying to get these mountain spots because just for an aggressive land that you can drop creatures on, but also for Axe Grinder, because it will get that +1/+1 buff when you drop it on an opponent's well. In this deck, like I said earlier, because it's only got a 3 mountain requirement, you do have that luxury of building double neutrals, and of course you never want to build more mountains than you need. So I've already built my second mountain here, so I really just want to be double neutraling up and trying to place that third mountain as close to his face as possible. Now, a lot of the time you will build more than 3 mountains because of bomb slingers. A lot of the time you need to specifically build a mountain to get that bomb slinger to target that 4 damage on a creature. But as much as you can, you want to try and only be building 3 mountains for the rest of the game, so that you can just get access to the +1 and draw on the power wheel. So in this situation, I am going second. My opponent may have built a land to the side, which makes me able to make a decision. Because they've invested into one side, I get to pick which side I want to go down to. But because I started center, again, I will also follow with land center, just because I don't know which side he's going to. I'll hold on to the Explorer, there's no point in playing it, of course. And then on the next turn, he will have to invest into one side, unless he's rushing, of course. And then I'll be able to make a decision based on that. I can go Explore, and then Mountain. and drop my Herald here. So making the consideration of which side to go down to, of course, depends on what your opponent plays in this opening hand. Let's say he plays, let's say this was a lake, he drops a second lake next turn and plays Battletoads. I'd feel reasonably confident fighting the same side there. He does have the option to Aurora one of his toads into a 6/6, which is a little bit unfortunate running into my combat creatures. But in general, he's probably not going to have that right away. And getting that aggressive Herald right into his Battletoads is going to disrupt his land placement a little bit. Also, having Horsemaster in the opening hand can be sometimes nice. It does have a 3 wild land requirement, shown by that rainbow land color, which means I will need 3 special lands. So I won't be able to Horsemaster if he decides to tuck in the corner here. At least not right away. But it does force him to hide in this corner, or switch sides entirely, and now he's wasted that 1 land. And then this can be a nice surprise later on. Once you get those 3 mountains, you can double neutral anywhere and charge up your Herald. If that had been like a forest, and then he drops a second forest and a Verdurine forest or something really large, then of course I want to avoid that. I want as much combat triggers as I can, and if I'm hitting into Verdurine forests and big creatures like that, they're just going to die in one shot, so I'd much rather push opposite side and try and sneak in some face hits to get these combat triggers instead. Especially against green, you're not going to be able to control the board very well, like I was talking about earlier in the video. These Cypher's Wrath and Flame Burst are really good coming down on smaller creatures like the Battletoads. So if they're playing big stuff, you want to try and skirt around them. Instead of controlling the board so much, try and go for face. But if they are playing Battletoads or other small swarmy creatures like Rakoans, going same side can be a good option a lot of the time. But again, it depends a lot on what their opening creature is, their opening lands are. Just making that decision whether you want to go opposite or same side can be very crucial in every matchup. So now in this situation, my opponent has already invested into one side, so I don't need to play the mountain center. I would much prefer playing to the sides with this deck. And so now I get to pick which option I want to go to, and this very much depends on the opening land that your opponent plays, and potentially the opening creature as well. So Flamespitter's a bit unorthodox a card. You don't see that very often, but I would suspect that my opponent is playing some kind of burn deck, and so he'll have burn creatures that drops down, as in combat creatures that deal 2 damage to me when I hit into them. So I don't really want to be hitting into those creatures. I'd much rather go to the opposite side in this case. So here I'd drop a mountain to this side, and then on my next turn I'd explore mountain just to get that, and then drop a creature, and then so that just gets my creature up 1 tile further. And here, obviously this is a small body that I could easily hit into, but he's going to be protecting this with other creatures, so keep that in mind as well. Just because they play a small body doesn't mean small bodies will continue to develop down this side. If you have an Axe Grinder in your opening hand, you will always start with a mountain to the side. Even though you don't know which side your opponent is invested in, you always want to take advantage of this turn 1 collector, no matter what. And from here, you can choose to double neutral, just building up towards this spot on the well, or this spot here. Sometimes, if you have a burn spell in hand, like Cypher's Wrath or Flame Burst, and your opponent drops a 2-life creature or a 3-life creature, you may consider just dropping a mountain and then killing that. Getting that early kill is really important too. So your next land placement really depends on what your opponent plays. But either a mountain to clear what they're doing, or double neutral up here. I'm just trying to get up aggressive like this. Going against Bamser, so I quite like this hand. Going first means I get the initiative on building my mountain first, which brings me close to the ground shaker. I might consider scooping this for a burn spell. Do kind of like that it's a Horse Master though. Let's scoop it. It's really nice to have that Flame Burst in hand. We go Mountain Center. Desert. Oh, we got the Horse Master anyways. So we'll have to pick a side ourselves. Play the boss. These are really sad against Choking Sand, but can't so much play around that. Glide Hopper. So this looks like probably a yellow tempo list. I'm gonna double neutral here. There's no reason to play a mountain just yet. And this might make him a bit confident to jump here. Bamser probably knows that I have Bomb Slingers in this list though, so he might decide to tuck in the corner. This is very excellent opening hand at the moment. I have a lot of answers to this. I've got Ground Shaker, Flame Burst, Bomb Slinger. Interesting. Okay. So he gets to triple collect that turn. Pretty good for him. But we can clean that up with a Ground Shaker. Would be nice to get this aggressive Axe Grinder as well in the same turn. Feels a little sad flame bursting a 1 health creature. I think I'm going to go for Ground Shaker, Axe Grinder, and because this has jump, I think I don't mind so much putting it here. And then the Ground Shaker, I'm thinking here he can put a lake here and drop Mystic Beast. But putting Ground Shaker here and he plays no creature just puts him in a spot where he can't do anything, so I think I'm probably fine going here. This also gives me a Horse Master line to double neutral here. So I've got a lot of options here. I've got this Horse Master line. I've got a Horse Master line here if he moves this creature away. And if he wants to double collect, he won't be able to play that Mystic Beast. Oh. Okay, so this changes my line a lot. Because Ground Shake is just too good not to take. Also sets up a Bomb Slinger for next turn, which is very excellent. So I'll go for my collection, and I think I'll play a double neutral up here to get my Axe Grinder staying on the well, but then able to hit face next turn. And this Ground Shaker can come back to go into a defensive position. I like that quite a lot. Yeah, that was a very good answer. Lucky draw by me. This double neutral means I can drop an aggressive Horsemaster there next turn. Colossus are difficult for red to deal with. Not impossible, because I do have Bomb Slinger. But this Ground Shaker spot in this situation is kind of nice, because he is threatening this tile, so there's very limited creatures that can come safely down here. It's only really Colossus. I don't know how much his Colossus cost right now. Maybe... Okay, oh, he's running Tide Lord. Interesting. The Tide Lord is difficult for red to deal with. That 6 life stat's very awkward. And he's protected his Triton Warrior very well from my Bomb Slinger getting to it. Probably just gonna want this Brigand to come down somewhere. I might consider Horsemastering this Ground Shaker up, aggressive. He's gonna be able to hit in for a lot next turn. I think this will definitely come in here. If I want to play Brigand and Horsemaster, I'll have to +1 for that. There's no spots to put them, really. Okay, let's draw. Alright. So I'm okay with that line. Double Flame Burst would have been nice in my last hand, but that's okay. So the line I was thinking of was +1 Horsemaster and Brigand, but the only spot for Brigand is here, which really does nothing for me. And because he's got all of this aggression that is going to be difficult to deal with, Colossus coming down very soon, I really want to get this aggression of my own going. And he's on 13 life, so it's a good time to race right now. Don't want to leave myself completely undefended though, because these are very heavy hitters. But this double flame burst will be very nice for the race. To retreat a little, okay. very nice clear here with Bomb Slinger and Horsemaster. If that's what I want to do. Which I think it is. I need to clear these somehow. This goes into face. I'm going to lose my aggression though if he has something way to deal with this. He's down to 8. The other option is to drop something aggressive up here, which may be the better plan because I want to set up lethal. I think I prefer setting up lethal. This deck typically doesn't run hard removal like Nightmare. It will have Humbling Vision, but that's okay, because as long as this Ground Shaker stays here, he's going to have to use one of these creatures to hit into, and I'm still at a healthy 20 life. So I'd like to drop an aggressive creature here. The beefier body. And then I'll just use Horsemaster to collect. We'll save this Faeria. This double Flame Burst might end up being our win. If he Soul Drains, I'll have just enough to win. So Brigand would have been a nice cleanup on the Colossus if he hits into that, but I really want to save all of my investment to going face, I think. So there's the Humbling Vision coming down here. So I'm pretty confident that I'll win this now, because the only thing he can really do is a Soul Drain, and like I said, I have the clear in hand, the win in hand. There is the Soul Drain, which looks very good for Bamsa right now, but unfortunately I've got that double Flame Burst for the victory. Alright, I hope you guys enjoyed that, and if you have any questions, suggestions, anything like that, feel free to drop a comment below. And also if you have any deck suggestions that you'd like me to try out next and make a strategy guide for, also be sure to drop a comment for that. I'd love to try out your guys's, what you guys want. Other than that, good luck with playing this deck, have fun, and I'll see you guys next time.